How many of you have heard of Snoops.com? Anybody use it? Snoops.com is a website where if there's stuff that is hard to believe, you can go to Snoops. And ideally, someone has checked it out to verify if it's true or not. So I'm going to read you an exchange that appeared on Snoops. And you tell me if you think this sounds plausible or not. I'm going to go back a few years. FBI agents conducted a raid of a psychiatric hospital in San Diego. It was under investigation for medical insurance fraud. After spending several hours, actually most of the day, reviewing the medical records, the agents were hungry. And so they called the local Little Caesars to order pizza and drinks for the team. According to Snoops, here's how the conversation went. FBI agent, hey, I'd like to order 19 large pizzas and 67 cans of soda. And the pizza guy said, where would you like them delivered? And the agent said, we're over at the psychiatric hospital. And the pizza guy said, the psychiatric hospital. And the agent said, that's right, I'm an FBI agent. And the pizza guy said, you're an FBI agent. And the agent said, that's correct, everybody here is. And the pizza man said, and you're at the psychiatric hospital. And the agent said, that's correct, and make sure you don't go through the front doors, we have them locked. You'll have to go around to the back to the service entrance to deliver the pizzas. And the pizza guy said, and you say you're all FBI agents. And the agent said, that's right, how soon can you have them here? And the pizza man said, and everyone at the psychiatric hospital is an FBI agent. And the agent said, that's right, we've been here all day and we're starving. And the pizza guy said, and how are you going to pay for all this? And the agent says, I have my checkbook right here. And the pizza guy says, and you're all FBI agents. And the agent said, that's right, everyone here is an FBI agent. Can you remember to bring the pizzas and sodas to the back door, please? We have the front doors locked. And the pizza guy said, I don't think so, and hung up. True story. Man, aren't there not some things that happen in life that make us go, yeah, it's a little far-fetched, I'm not sure I can get there, right? And today I want to introduce you to a guy that I'm not sure that's how he felt, but if he did feel that way, I think we could all relate. His name is Thomas. If you grew up in church, maybe you've heard of the guy. His story is found in John chapter 20. If you've got a Bible, you got a Bible app, whatever you're using, if you would turn there with me. In the next 3 or 4 weeks, we're going to look at the 40 days that happened after Easter. We're living in that time period, okay? And Acts 1 says that there was from the resurrection Easter Sunday morning until Jesus went into heaven, there were 40 days. And there were a number of things that happened during those 40 days that I think are interesting still to our faith today. Easter Sunday, women went to the tomb. They found the tomb empty. They went back, told the 10 guys who were hanging out. 2 of them went to the tomb. They didn't find anybody there. That sort of threw them for a little bit of a loop. They weren't sure what was going on. Jesus then meets Mary outside. She's confused, thinks he's the gardener, and then recognizes his voice. And she says, hey, go tell my guys I'm alive. As he's working his way back to visit the guys, Luke records there's 2 disciples walking along, sort of distressed. They're aware of what happened. They don't recognize Jesus. Jesus walks with them for a little bit of time, has a meal with them, and then they're like, oh man, that was the Lord, right? And then I believe afternoonish, early evenish time, Jesus appears to 10 guys. Judas has already killed himself, right? And Thomas isn't there. And he walks through a locked door, and they eat with him. They're talking with him. They're scared, spitless, right? And then the light dawns. They're like, oh, wait, is this really Jesus? What do you think about that for a second? We've never experienced anything like that. You've never went to a graveside and then 3 days later had a meal with that person. That's what's so hard for you to get your arms around. None of us have ever experienced that. It just seems unreal. Like there's just no way that can happen. Dead people stay dead. It's just what happens, right? Dead people don't come back. Except on Easter, Jesus walked out of the grave. And he appeared to these 10 followers of his, and he said, hey. And they're like, whoa. And so the whole next week, they're telling anybody who will listen, but especially their friend Thomas, we've seen the Lord. Jesus was with us. And Thomas is like, nah, no way I can get there. I saw the cross. I ran away. I know what happened. I don't know what you guys saw, but it wasn't Jesus. I feel bad that you saw that. I feel bad that you're having some bad memories, some bad dreams, but no. And all week long, for 8 days. And I asked myself, these are your best friends. You hung out with these guys for 3 years. They're telling you something. And so one of the questions I think I asked myself was, where was Thomas on Easter Sunday morning? Why wasn't he with his friends? I mean, normally it's appropriate that when you're grieving, not always, but you grieve with those you love. And Thomas isn't there, right? And so my brain went this past week to like, where was he? Why wasn't he there? And I'll give you a couple suggestions maybe, because we're not really told. I think it's also appropriate that some of you like to grieve alone. Some of you don't want to be with other people when you're working through stuff. When you've been hurt really bad, what do? You withdraw. You isolate yourself. It hurts too bad. You don't want to talk about it. You can't escape the thoughts, but you're not going to hang with people. And so Thomas is like, nowhere to be found. I wonder if there was a part of Thomas that just was like, what's next? Like, I thought this was it. I really thought we were going to take over the kingdom. I thought you've got in your brain how life was going to go, and then somebody gives you a phone call. And suddenly the way you thought life was going to go, it's not going that way anymore. And what do you do? What do you do with those expectations that have been crushed? What do you do when someone like hurts you, pains you in a real way? It's like, oh, man. So we're not told why Thomas wasn't there. We know that he was a real guy and he had his questions, and we call him Doubting Thomas. And you know, one of the things I want to say to you, at least today, is that Jesus isn't afraid of your questions. Because I bet this morning some of you got questions. Is the Christianity thing real? Is it possible? I don't know. There are a lot of people who say, there are a lot of people who say no. If Jesus is real, here's what you do. You go down the path, if Jesus is real, why did X happen? If God's real, why did this happen in my life? If God's real, and I prayed for this, and it didn't come out the way I prayed. You say God is real, but why didn't he listen to me? Doesn't he care? You got questions, and they're legitimate. And you know, the thing that I see from Thomas is God's not afraid of your questions. Some of you have gone to church. Listen, I'm in the church world. I get it. I hear the horror stories. There are people who go to church and they've got honest questions, and the church has turned them off. We don't want to hear your questions. If you were a believer, if you were a strong Christian, you wouldn't X. Happens in the church. Some of you have been hurt by that. You're like, One of the reasons that we started Stonebridge was to be a place where people who maybe had been burnt at some prior time felt a place where they could come and just be and ask and see. Jesus is not afraid of my questions. He's not afraid of yours. In fact, he welcomes them. Okay? So, I said, all right, well, if Jesus welcomes our questions, where do they come from? And I've already alluded to some of this, right? Where do my questions come from? One of the things that I think happens is we have I said, pain, we get hurt. I have a question. I expected things to be a certain way, and they didn't turn out the way I expected, and I got questions. I think there are people who look at some of the stuff in the scriptures. In fact, let me just read you this story, okay, and see what Thomas was saying. Thomas, one of the 12, I'm in John chapter 20, verse 24. Thomas, one of the 12, was not with the disciples when Jesus came. That's Easter Sunday, okay? So the other disciples told him, and that verb told him is repeatedly, not a one-off. They've been telling him for 8 days, we have seen the Lord. And he said, unless I see the nail marks in his hands, and I put my finger where his nails were, I put my hand into his side, I'm just not going to believe it. And a week later, that's this Sunday. You go back in history, the next Sunday after Easter, his disciples were in the house again. Now, verse 19, it talks about they were in the house, the door was locked because they were afraid of the Jews. They were like, they got our leader. We're obviously going to be next. It's the way it works, right? You followed the war in Iran? What was the first thing we did? You go for the top guy. You go for his family. You go for anybody associated with him. They're locked because they got the top guy. Everybody knows they traveled with him. They're scared. We're going to be next. So again, Thomas is with them. Though the doors were locked, they're still in a locked room, scared. Jesus came, stood among them in their midst and said, peace be to you. And then he said to Thomas, he looks at Thomas, everybody else in the room, but locks eyes with Thomas, and he said, hey, heard you got a question. Put your finger here. Come on, touch. Here's my side. Go ahead. You said you wanted to. Come on. Reach out your hand and put it into my side. Stop doubting and believe. And Thomas said to him, my Lord and my God. And Jesus in verse 29 says, because you have seen me, you believed. Blessed are those who have not seen and yet have believed. And Jesus did many other miraculous signs in the presence of his disciples. They're not recorded in this book, but the ones that are here are written so that you would believe that Jesus is the Christ, the Son of God, and that by believing you may have life in his name. Okay. Our questions. Doubting Thomas. Let's set the stage. I think when it comes to the struggles that you and I have in believing about Jesus or some of this stuff, we've got to parse, we've got to separate out. There are some of you, if it's going to sound weird, if Jesus were to walk through the door right now, you wouldn't believe. There's a difference between doubt and unbelief. And we try and pass it off as like, yeah, but you know your heart. You know in your heart of hearts, you would not believe. Because to follow Jesus means you got to give up control, and you don't want to give up control. You like being in charge of your life. It's not perfect, but you're in charge. And you don't have to answer to anybody. You don't have to bow the knee to anybody. You're the man. You're the woman. Boom. Jesus doesn't let us get away with that. He says, hey, will you follow? And so one of the things that I think honest people have to do is separate out. If you could have it shown you that Jesus is God, would you believe? Do you have honest questions and doubts? Or are you just steeped in unbelief and it doesn't matter what would happen? And that's just a matter of your integrity. I'm calling you out. What's going on in your heart? Because Jesus welcomes your questions. And he's willing to work with you and he's willing to answer. But unbelief is a whole different animal. So do you doubt? Do you have some legitimate concerns? That, hey, if this could be shown me? Or are you like, no, ain't going to happen? Thomas had some legitimate questions because he saw Jesus die. He's just trying to compute it, like dead men don't rise. Like, I don't know what you guys saw. I want to believe. I want to. You guys don't know how much I loved him. I was right in there with you guys. But I just can't get there. Like, it just doesn't happen, guys. Come on. Thomas, we've seen. We've talked to him. We've touched him. We had a meal with him. Yeah, I don't know what you guys saw. But unless I can see him, unless I can touch him, I just can't believe. And I wonder what led to Thomas being there on this Sunday. What made Thomas go to the room? See, I think if he's totally shut off and he's done with the whole thing, he's not showing up. Something made him go to the room. Could it be true? Is it possible? I don't know. But those guys, I mean, I know Peter's an egghead, but shoot, John's pretty stable. John was pretty insistent. Like, man, whoa, I don't know. All right, they're getting together in a half hour. Oh, man, okay. All right, what's it going to hurt? At least I'll get a meal out of it. And Thomas shows up in the locked room. What's got your heart locked? What's making it hard for you? What are you willing to admit to? Would your life be different if you were totally bought in? I know what it's like. I want to hedge my bets. What if the Jesus thing isn't really true? Man, I don't want to go all in. Because what if it's just not true? I think that's where Thomas is. He's just stuck. But he's going to go because they're friends. And I'll hang out with them. One of the things I want you to understand is all the disciples were skeptics on Easter. None of them believed that Jesus was going to rise. No one believed. And so when I think about Jesus welcoming your questions, if you've got serious questions, if you've got stuff you want to sort out, if you're like, man, I'm 70% in, I'm 90% in, I'm just not all the way bought in, will you ask him? Will you explore your heart and say, what's holding me back? Because none of the original followers believed Jesus was going to rise. Thomas gets a bad rap. They were all doubters. That's why they were scared. That's why they were shocked. That's why they're like, whoa. What else did I have here? Is there something that's keeping you locked inside? What if, made myself a note there, what if your questions were the key to unlocking something going deeper for you? No one who has a deep relationship with God got there by accident. They had to work through some really difficult things. They asked some hard questions, and they sought the answers. Because they were willing to say, if it's fake, I'm going to walk away. But if it's real, I want to buy in. The second thing that just struck me here is that 3 times in the passage, Jesus says to these guys, peace. He says, peace. Peace be with you. Interesting word. I love the word. It's a word that means like your heart's at rest. The Hebrew word is shalom. It means to be well-being. It means to be like, I want well for you and I want well for me. And there's just like man, it's okay. That's what it means to be at peace. And 3 times in this text here, Jesus comes to these guys and says, peace. Now, why I think that's a big deal, why you should too, is because here's what Jesus doesn't do. Are you ready? You know what it is. Jesus doesn't come and say, it's Didn't we talk about this? I mean, didn't I tell you, like, this was going to happen? And like, what are you guys, just dull? You didn't get it? I mean, you all sat there. Y'all were nodding when I was teaching. Like, what's your deal? Thomas, I sent 10 guys to tell you. What is your problem, dude? There's none of that. Jesus comes and says, I want you to be whole in your heart. I want you to be well. I'm not afraid of your questions. Come on, let's talk. You want some evidence? Let me show you some. Here, look at my wrist. Hey, look at this right here. Here's where the spear went. You want to touch it? Go ahead. There's not a hint of scold. There's not a hint of judgment. And I think if there's one thing that grates me in the church that I see, universal church, is when people come out and we just judge. We condemn others. People they want to really know. They want to ask legitimate questions, and we shut it down. Why? God doesn't. We're so harsh with one another. We're harsh with people outside the church. Like, all right, people got criticisms. Great, fine. They didn't seem to bother Jesus. Why did they bother me? It's like, oh man, I cringe inside. What if they're true? What if the attacks are true and I'm going to look like a fool? Is that what you're afraid of? You look bad? Like, oh man, somebody finds out at work you're a Christian? You believe? Do you believe that whole stuff? You believe the whole walking on water? You believe the whole like Easter Sunday stuff? You believe? Huh? Wow. And I think you might be surprised to find that there are more people out there that are willing to have honest dialogue than actually want to hammer you. But man, sometimes it just feels like we have to beat people up in the church. And Jesus just says, hey, I want you whole. I come in peace. So the question I have, I want to give you a couple other passages here that just struck me. Jesus in John 14 said, the world has a sense of peace. What does peace out here in culture look like? Generally speaking, it's like you got no trouble in your world. Everything's well, right? Your relationships are good, your job's good, your marriage is good, the kids are all paying attention. That's peace. Jesus says, I'm going to give you a peace that's not like the world gives. Because the world says you can have peace if your circumstances are chill. Jesus says, I'm going to give you the ability to be calm inside when there's chaos all around you. Radically different. I wish I could bring people up who are going some deep doo-doo and talk to you about how they're getting through it. I can tell you it's true. It's totally different when you hear from somebody whose world's a little bit topsy-turvy, and yet they're saying that they just have a sense in their spirit God's got them. Because I think that's what people want. Because you know that the world is not going to give you smooth sailing all the way through. And you're waiting for the other shoe to drop. You just wait. I mean, when things are going well, you try not to think about when things might not go well. And when things aren't going well, you think things are never going to go back the way they were. And that's hard. And Jesus says, I come giving you a wellness in your spirit that when things aren't going well, you're going to be okay. That's the power of the peace of God. He gives us peace with Him. He gives us peace with ourselves. He can give us peace with one another. Jesus comes in peace. And He says, I'm going to give that to you. Do you want it? I'm offering it. So I was writing down here and I said, well, how do I find this peace? Where does it come from? I think it comes from the Father when we ask, and I think it gets lived out and felt when we're living in community. It wasn't lost on me that when Thomas was out there isolated, he felt angst in his spirit. When he was disconnected from the other guys, he missed Easter Sunday, but there was also this churning in his soul. And then he comes back together with the other guys and Jesus shows up. And so I think there's something powerful about being in community with other people. And I think the natural thing that you want to do when you get hurt is withdrawal. and you want to isolate. And I want to encourage you that I think that God's designed us to live in community and to be with other people so that we can weep with those who weep, we can mourn with those who mourn, we can rejoice with those who rejoice. That all happens in community. And when you kind of like pull yourself back because, I got this, or I just don't got it, you set yourself up for what I think are greater attacks. Peace comes when I'm in the Word, when I'm hearing what God's got to say to me, when I can look at the scriptures and say, even this passage, what would it have been like? Hear me. You're going to walk out of here today and you're going to have to do something with the fact that I said to you from the Word of God that Jesus doesn't condemn you. Hear me, God is not your critic. God is for us. If God is for us, who can be against us? Paul in Romans 8. But you're going to listen to voices this week telling you things about yourself. Who are you going to believe? And it's the Word that gives me the strength to go out and face whatever we're facing. It's the Word of God, and sometimes it's the brothers and sisters who say a word to me and say, hey, Mike, remember. And that happens when we're in worship together. That happens when we're in studies together. That happens when we're in a small group together, when at least I've got another brother, another sister, another friend that I know has my best interests at heart, that's praying for me. Jesus said to them, he says to you, because you've seen me, you've believed. And that's true for Thomas. That was true for those like, man, but what about us? We've not seen. So I want to ask you to think about some things here then. He says to him pretty emphatically to Thomas, stop doubting and believe. Or I have in my Bible written, don't be an unbeliever. Thomas, I'm showing you. So stop it. Stop it. Just stop it. Be a believer. So what proof is there that Jesus is alive? If I could offer you some things, some of this may be rehearsal for some of you it may be new information. I appreciate the fact that like great scholarly minds in the legal profession have looked at the resurrection of Jesus and said, the evidence is there. How many of you might say, sort of interesting, how many of you might say, if the resurrection of Jesus could be proven, you'd believe? I would, right? If it could be proven beyond a reasonable doubt that Jesus rose, would you believe? It's interesting. Go back, that's where I started, right? How many of you, doesn't matter what was shown, you're just like, just dead guys don't rise? Or you might say, so the first thing you have to get your brain around is this. What do you mean by proof? I mean, how do you prove history? Because you get that proving history is different than proving gravity, right? How many times will this rock fall? Did that time. What do you think? You think if I drop it again? Some of you are wondering, what if it suspends in midair? Wouldn't that be cool? 0 for 2. How many times do I have to drop this rock before you think it suspends? It's always going to drop, isn't it? Because that's what gravity does. We prove gravity to be true. That's why, I mean seriously, man, if you want to go 10 stories up and you want to jump because you think you can fly, but if I have $100, where am I putting my $100? You're dropping like a rock. So you have to understand that when it comes to proving something in history, you're not looking for the same, it's not the same proof as things that have been proven by laws of nature. Laws of nature are dead things stay dead. Do they? Do they? What about this life we see out here with plants? Do dead things stay dead? But generally speaking, dead people stay dead. That's the law of nature, right? So how do we prove, though, an event in history? Oh, it's different, isn't it? Court of law. If this was a courtroom and you were the jury, and they wanted to prove somebody did something, they can't go back and do it again, right? Because it doesn't repeat itself. So what are you looking for? What would you be looking for as a juror if somebody was trying to convince you that this person did this? Okay? Is there any evidence for the resurrection of Jesus? Let's start with, I think there's 3 or 4 that are really, really cool that I just hang my hat on. I'm telling you as a pastor, but as a person, this is where I hang my hat. There was no body. That doesn't mean Jesus rose. Hear me. The fact that there's no body doesn't mean Jesus rose. Okay? I'm going to give you that. But there's still no body. They couldn't produce a body. All they had to do to shut down the rumors was what? What would it have taken? Say it aloud. The body. Just prop up the dead body, and Christianity goes away. Peter, hey, we have seen the Lord. You mean this guy? This guy over here. The one there laying there? That guy? You've seen him. There's no body. Muhammad, Gandhi, Mother Teresa, John F. Kennedy. I mean, it makes no difference to me. There's a body. There's no body. Nobody found the body of Jesus. Doesn't mean he rose, but there's no body. The grave was empty. Again, could have gone the wrong grave. I'm just saying that the tomb that they all said, hey, Jesus is in there, is empty. Where did the body go that was in that grave? It's an honest question. I'm asking questions. If you think Jesus is still dead somewhere, I'm simply asking you, where do you think the body went that was in the grave? It's a legitimate question. Did someone take it? Did they go to the wrong tomb? Think about this for a second. You were actually there. You know what tomb they put him in. Now there's no body there. And you can't produce the body. Where is he? That's all I'm asking you. Where's Jesus? Where'd he go? You just tell me. Thomas is an interesting, one of the other things if you're in a court of law, you're looking at evidence, and then you're wondering, are there any videotapes? Ring cameras are cool today, right? Ring cameras capture things, right? It's hard to argue with video, right? Okay, before ring cameras, you had what? Video. You had people saying, hey, I saw. Now, the credibility of the witness matters. Why do you watch these cop shows and like, hey, did they offer you a reduced sentence? Yeah, you got a motive for lying. See, you're going to get a lenient sentence. Oh, you were drunk that night. How do you know what you saw? So they attack the credibility of the witness. But eyewitness testimony is powerful because someone is saying, I saw this happen. Okay? In the case of Jesus, one of the interesting things is the testimony of the women. Because in that culture, ladies, you didn't amount for nothing. No offense. It was a man-dominated society. If your husband said, hey, I saw it happen, that's cool. If you saw it, And so the women come out of the gate and they're like, we have seen him. And then the disciples, we have seen him. But one of the interesting things I just mean this, I want you to think about this, right? Thomas is an interesting dude. You know what happened to Thomas? I think between 52 to 72 AD, he went to India. You know what he did in India? He started churches. You know how he died? He was killed because someone asked him to say that Jesus isn't real. He wouldn't do it. So they put him to death. I just want you to think about that. Does that prove Jesus rose? No. But man, isn't it odd that a dude that was saying, I'm not going to believe, ends up leaving and going a long ways away, to tell people about Jesus that he doesn't know. And when he's given the opportunity, you can live if you say Jesus isn't real or we're going to kill you, he chooses death. Why would he do that if Jesus is still dead? He was in a position to know. He would know what's true or not. Apostle Paul is interesting to me. He had his life. He was going well. He was making money. He was beating people up. Something changed. The Apostle Paul would say, I saw Jesus. And when I saw Jesus and he was alive, and he's like, hey, Paul, what are you doing, dude? Why are you beating Christians up? My life changed. And I went about trying to help people understand who Jesus is and build the church. Why would Paul do that? He had no reason to do that. James, the half-brother of Jesus, who wrote the New Testament book of James, did not believe. Did not believe. I've got 4 kids. If one of my kids started saying some really bat crazy stuff, there's 3 other kids that would say, no, no, no. Jesus is saying some bat crazy stuff, and his half-brother ends up being a leader in the church. I'm asking you why. What changed for him? Last exhibit 4 I would give you. Okay? Why are you here today? Legitimate question. Why are you here today? Why are you watching online? Honest. If it's fake, what are you doing here? I mean, let's just say you're here because of some, I don't know, man. People go to church for a lot of different reasons, right? But you still came to church today. Why? Because I'm going to be honest, it's 72 degrees. Can I say this? I'm driving over. It's 72 degrees. I got Danny on speed dial. I almost said, like, if I didn't do church work, you know where I'd be? The Falls. We'd be playing golf today. This is beautiful out. Why are you here? Why am I here? Some of you are convinced that Christ is the Messiah, the Son of God, and that by believing, as John says, that you would have life in his name. Some of you are honestly asking questions. To those of you that are asking questions, I would say keep asking. Reach out, ping me. Happy to have lunch with you. There's other people that are solid that would love to talk to you. Some of you need to take the step from going, man, because it's easy to sit on the fence. It's so easy. Where Jesus is saying, stop doubting and believe. And as it says here then, these things were written that you would believe that Jesus is the Christ, the Son of God. You know what those things are? It's not just sermons. It's God at work. It's seeing God at work in everyday life. It's seeing lives changed. It's seeing people follow Jesus that don't really have a good reason to follow Jesus. What about you? What about you? What's holding you back? What's got your heart locked up? One of the things that you might do is out there on the table, you'll see that last week we had some people bring in these large white stones, and there's a tomb out there, and we said, hey, why don't you take a moment, and if there's something that's kind of got you locked up, write it on the stone and put it at the foot of the grave. So someone put fear. Someone else wrote grief. Someone else wrote Alzheimer's. There's a whole bunch of stuff out there. Cancer. ADHD. What's got you hung up? What's got you that you're just not there? And I could encourage you to leave it at the tomb, because Jesus busted through it so that you and I might have life. The team's going to come up. They're going to lead us in the last song. God never turns an honest doubter, questioner away. Somebody said it's a wonderful truth that the greatest doubters often become the strongest Christians. Hudson Taylor once said, God isn't looking for people of great faith, but he's looking for individuals ready to follow him. Another great Christian thinker by the name of Henry Nouwen said, so while I'm praying, while I don't know how to pray, and I'm resting while I still feel restless, I'm at peace even while I'm tempted. I feel safe even while my heart is churning. I'm surrounded by a cloud of light while still in darkness. I love even while I'm still doubting. One of the most beautiful things of what I think is the Christian faith is this, that biblical faith is trusting God, is believing God, plus dealing with your questions, but you act on the belief part. You act on the belief part. Belief wins, not doubt. Let's stand and sing with these guys.